Welcome back, Forgotten Crimes fans. Today, we are delving into the chilling case of Whitey Bulger, one of the most notorious crime figures in American history. As the leader of Boston's Winter Hill Gang, Bulger ruled the criminal underworld for decades, all while secretly working as an FBI informant. His story is a dark and complex tale of betrayal, power, and the corrupting influence of crime on law enforcement. James Joseph Whitey Bulger was born on September 3, 1929, in South Boston, Massachusetts, into a large Irish-American family. From an early age, Bulger was drawn to a life of crime. His nickname, Whitey, came from his platinum blonde hair as a youth. Though Bulger hated the nickname, it stuck with him throughout his life. His criminal career began with petty thefts, but it quickly escalated. By the early 1950s, he had served time in federal prison for armed robbery and car theft, including a stint at the Notorious Alcatraz prison. However, it wasn't until the 1970s that Bulger's influence in the criminal world reached its peak. Upon his release from prison, Bulger rose to power in Boston's underworld, taking control of the Winter Hill Gang, a predominantly Irish-American organized crime syndicate. The gang was involved in everything from drug trafficking and extortion to loan sharking and murder. Bulger's ruthlessness and willingness to eliminate rivals cemented his control over South Boston's criminal enterprises. What made Whitey Bulger's story particularly unique, though, was his relationship with law enforcement. In 1975, Bulger secretly became an informant for the FBI. His handler, Special Agent John Connolly, had grown up in the same South Boston neighborhood as Bulger, and their connection allowed Bulger to use the FBI to his advantage. Under the pretext of providing information on the Italian Mafia, one of the FBI's top targets at the time, Bulger fed agents just enough intelligence to keep them satisfied, while simultaneously using the FBI to eliminate his own enemies and maintain his criminal empire. This unholy alliance lasted for years, allowing Bulger to operate with near impunity. He was, in essence, protected by the very people meant to stop him. The extent of the corruption within the FBI would only become apparent years later, but by the 1980s, Bulger was firmly entrenched as one of Boston's most feared figures. His gang, backed by FBI protection, ran roughshod over the city's criminal underworld, leaving a trail of violence and intimidation in its wake. However, Bulger's luck began to run out in the 1990s when federal authorities, growing suspicious of his informant status, launched a broader investigation into his activities. In 1994, after receiving a tip from Connolly that he was about to be indicted, Bulger fled Boston. Thus began one of the most infamous manhunts in U.S. history. For 16 years, Bulger and his longtime girlfriend, Catherine Gregg, remained on the run, evading capture by living under assumed identities. Despite being placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list, second only to Osama bin Laden, Bulger managed to avoid detection, even as federal agents searched across the globe. The mystery of his whereabouts gripped the nation, with rumors swirling about his hiding places and the extent of his crimes. It wasn't until June 22, 2011, that Whitey Bulger was finally captured. Authorities arrested him in Santa Monica, California, where he had been living quietly in a rent-controlled apartment under the alias Charles Gasco. His arrest marked the end of a decades-long saga that had captivated the country. Bulger was charged with numerous crimes, including 19 counts of murder, racketeering, and extortion. During his 2013 trial, the full extent of his reign of terror was laid bare, with testimony from former associates, victims' families, and law enforcement officials. The trial revealed shocking details about Bulger's brutal methods, including his direct involvement in several cold-blooded murders. One of the most damning revelations was the role played by FBI agents, particularly John Connolly, in allowing Bulger to continue his criminal activities for so long. Connolly was later convicted of racketeering and second-degree murder for his involvement with Bulger. In August 2013, Bulger was convicted of 31 counts, including participation in 11 murders. He was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison, plus 5 years. The conviction was a long-awaited moment of justice for many of Bulger's victims and their families, though the revelations about the FBI's complicity in his rise to power left a bitter taste. Whitey Bulger's criminal saga came to a violent end on October 30, 2018. Just one day after being transferred to USP Hazleton, a high-security federal prison in West Virginia, Bulger was brutally beaten to death by fellow inmates. His murder remains shrouded in mystery, but many speculate it was a revenge killing, possibly orchestrated by other organized crime figures who had long sought retribution. The story of Whitey Bulger is a chilling reminder of the complex relationship between crime, power, and corruption. His ability to manipulate both the criminal underworld and the FBI allowed him to evade justice for decades, leaving behind a legacy of violence and betrayal. The extent of the damage he caused, both to his victims and to the integrity of law enforcement, remains one of the darkest chapters in the history of American organized crime. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Forgotten Crimes. We love diving into the world of true crime, exploring the stories that grip the world and uncovering the details that make these cases so fascinating. If there's a case you're curious about or if you have any thoughts to share, let us know. Until next time, keep your curiosity alive, and remember, the world of crime is as complex as it is captivating.